Hello, my Bill 1000 Nation. How's everyone doing today? Hopefully, everyone's having a great day. If not, I hope it gets better from here. We are back with another Coffeehouse Crime. This one's titled The Obsessive. This is titled The Obsessive Killer That Confessed His Murder on Reddit. It made me giggle whenever I read it. I was like, really? Why? That's stupid. This is as bad as that one dude confessing to murdering his girl like during a karaoke rap battle. If I can remember the name of the video, I'll link in the description. If not, I don't know. I don't remember. But I remember it. It was hilarious. Alright, let's get into this story. Go ahead, turn them lights down low, put on something comfy, couple, something special. Let's get confused, because right now I'm confused on why you would admit to murder on Reddit. I mean, I know there's a lot of fake ass shit on Reddit, but did he think they was just gonna be like, oh, it's just a tall tale, everything on Reddit's fake? What was his thought process? You know what I mean?
Following a tumultuous and one-sided breakup, Melinda Vasilje found it impossible to escape her ex-boyfriend Ager Hasan. The two would eventually meet for closure, with the evening turning into tragedy of the highest level. But after friends found Melinda's lifeless body, Ager was nowhere to be found. Shortly after this, posts made by the man on the run began to appear all over Reddit and Instagram, with some of his messages triggering outrage amongst thousands of readers. But despite his brazen behavior, officers were not able to stop him from crossing the border into the US. It would take months to finally track him down, ending in an intense trial that left a fatigued and devastated family further shattered. But what were the details that got us here? This video looks at the horrific behavior of Ager Hasan, his turbulent time on the run, and the devastation that was left behind from his foul actions. Welcome back to Coffeehouse Crime, folks. My name is Adrian, and today I have an extremely dark case with a disturbing twist. We're looking at the case of Melinda Vasilje and her ex-boyfriend.
You have piqued my interest, sir. You had me at twist.
Ager Hasan. By the way, if you like true crime, strange or chilling stories, then Coffeehouse Crime is the place to be. Welcome if you're new. So, if you want to support the channel, then please subscribe now. And if you want to catch me in the first hour of my videos going live, then please hit the bell notification too. And also, have you tried Classified yet? I now have my own coffee brand, so if you want to support me, please check it out. And now, with that said, please grab yourself a coffee, pull up a seat, and get ready for the deep dive. This is the case of Melinda Vasilje. Welcome to Kitchener, folks. Located near the southern tip of Canada's province of Ontario, Kitchener is a stone's throw away from Ontario's capital city, Toronto. With a population of just over 250,000 people, it was known as Berlin for many years before officially changing its name in 1916. But despite the change in its identity, it did not hold the city's close connection to its German heritage. And to this day, it still continues to play host to the largest Oktoberfest celebration in the world outside of Germany. Museums and art shows are aplenty here, so it is well situated for the culturally inclined. But if that's not your thing, many parks await to be visited, alongside
Museums and nachos? Bro, you had me at nachos.
hundreds of slopes to shred if skiing and snowboarding is more your kind of scene. Maybe it's the festive spirit in me.
Bro, I have like the same taste as a 6-year-old child. Pizza and nachos. And burritos. Pizza, nachos, and burritos. That's my jam. Now, if I'm eating fancy, wontons, egg rolls, lo mein, General Tao's chicken. That's me fancy.
But it feels like fun awaits you around every corner here, and no matter what your taste, you will find something to entertain you. But sadly, these lands also hold some dark memories. In April of 2016, in a field just 60 miles southwest.
It's so pretty. Why would you want to kill someone when you got something to look at like that? Like, how can you be that angry of a person to where you murder someone when you get to look at beautiful, just
of Kitchener, a farmer came across the gruesome discovery of 8 bodies. It turns out that these 8 men belonged to one of the local gangs, which had been at war with another gang in the area. Now, I won't go into the details of this case, but this tragedy left 8 families mourning in what could have been an entirely avoidable incident. And in short, all of it boiled down to what the judge described as meth logic. Just out of curiosity, but if you are interested in hearing more about this story, then please let me know below. Anyway, beginning our story today, it's in the city of Kitchener that we find Melinda Vasilje. Melinda June Vasilje was born on June the 28th, 1994, to her mother Anna Todorovic, and her father, who wishes to remain unnamed in the media. And to complete the family of 4, she also grew up alongside her sister, Christina. Although not much is known about her childhood, Melinda was known to be a bright young woman who was loving, honest, forgiving, and kind. She was also known to have the loudest laugh in the room, and apparently one that was highly contagious. She was a humble woman with nurturing plans. She wanted to become a hairdresser one day and eventually marry and have kids whenever she met the right man. Many of us come to such aspirations eventually. Me personally, I would eventually like kids, but for now I'm happy just being a full-time cat dad. For Melinda though, she knew she wanted kids from a very...
See, I was not one of those people. I did not want kids young. I wanted to be like in my 40s. I had this thought, like by the time they start getting like in their 20s and really annoying, I could be death because I'm already in like my 65-ish years. So I could be deaf. And I wouldn't have to hear the bullshit. That was my thought process. But no, I had them at a really young age. My youngest son was born whenever I was 20. He was planned. I don't want to say he was an accident. I would never say it was an accident, but he was not planned. He was a happy accident. Boy changed my life though. The moment he was born, I wasn't the best person growing up. Figured I'd grow up eventually, but you know, I wasn't in a big hurry too. I was having fun. And then my son was born, and life has been so much better since. And then I had another one, and now I have 3 sons, 3 boys. Now it's just complicated, but still fun as shit though.
A young age. And perhaps she was hoping for such a thing when she met a man named Ager Hasan. Now, Ager was a resident of Hamilton, Ontario, and was of Iraqi descent. His parents had moved to Canada from Iraq to escape the Kurdish genocide, starting a new life in North America. Melinda and Ager immediately clicked when they met. A friendship was very quick to blossom between them, and it wasn't long before they became romantically involved too. As most relationships tend to go, it all began idyllically. But over the space of just a few months, and at this early stage, cracks suddenly began to form. To begin with, it was things...
They're too pretty of a couple. If they got married, they'd have to be like get married like straight GQ. Every picture would have to be like Tommy Hilfiger models. They're too pretty together. They need to stop.
Things like arguing, bickering and disagreeing, the usual suspects. But over time, those issues became more concerning. As the relationship approached its first year anniversary, their difficulties would come to a head, to the point where Melinda made the decision to end things with Ager. The arguments were beginning to get out of control, and deep down, Melinda knew that there was no viable future to be had with him. Too much hostility had grown, and it was sadly time to move on. But unfortunately, Ager did not take this decision well.
No, of course not.
Soon after this, Ager broke into Melinda's home through a patio door. Unfortunately for Ager though, both her roommate's brother and boyfriend were in at the time, and let me tell you, they were not pleased. Amidst the tense confrontation, police were called to the property where they then arrested Ager. He was eventually charged with 2 counts of assault and 1 count of breaking and entering. He was later released on the condition that he would not approach or contact Melinda. But in typical Ager fashion, this was another thing he refused to accept. He continued to barrage her with messages on a very regular basis, but despite Melinda leaving most of these messages unanswered, he doubled down and became more emotionally riled. Despite the tense situation, it was clear that there was still a lot to address and close off between the two of them. And so, on that note, Melinda agreed to meet up with him in order to...
Well, what's she supposed to do? Break up with him, change her name, change her social security number, move to a whole other continent? Yeah. Dude's a piece of shit. I'm sorry, he is.
figure out how to move forward. But you see, even this detail had issues. Although she felt like this was something that needed to happen in order to move on, it was clear that she was still concerned for her safety, to the extent that she asked her roommate Anna, another friend, and her sister to be in the same house when he came over, just in case things went pear-shaped. The night in question here was April the 27th, 2017. It was during this evening that the group waited for him to arrive. But, strangely, he never actually showed up. With the evening dragging on, Melinda allowed her friends and sister to carry on with their original plans, that being to head out to a local club. By the time the group had arrived back home at the apartment, it was just after midnight, meaning that the date had just progressed to April the 28th. But upon entering the apartment, the first thing that they noticed were shoes that they knew belonged to Ager sitting just outside of Melinda's bedroom. And in addition to this, they could also hear the sound of two people talking inside. Melinda's friends shouted out to her to ask her if she was okay, in which Melinda replied yes. And after feeling satisfied that there were no indications that anything was wrong, they texted her to ask if she wanted some food, since they themselves were planning to head out soon. Melinda replied that she was fine and didn't feel hungry. And so, relatively comfortable that she and Ager were okay to be alone, the group left the apartment to grab a bite. By the time they returned home, the time had just passed 2:30 in the morning.
I don't want to say that they're shitty friends. I don't want to say that. But if my friend was that scared, no, I'm spending the night with you. I'm not leaving. We'll Grubhub this shit. Uber Eats, I don't care. Well, no. Girl, I got you. It ain't happening. Look, you can ask my lady. I'm like that. Like, if someone is scared, I have a thing. I was diagnosed with it whenever I was little. It's like a superhero complex. I just can't walk away from someone when they need my help. It's not me. So no, I wouldn't go out to eat. We'd Grubhub. I ain't going out to the club, man. You feel uneasy. He ain't here yet. That doesn't mean he can't show up just anytime while we're not here. And if you're here by yourself, no. Dude, I'm the friend you want in that situation. I got you. Nothing's happening. Period. You need me to stay there for a week straight? I got you.
Morning, and when they eventually walked back into the house, they were met with a sight that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Melinda was lying on the ground, surrounded by a pool of her own blood. Two bloody knives lay by her side. She had been stabbed multiple times, and, tragically, it was clear that she was already dead. In a state of panic, the group frantically knocked on the door of a nearby neighbor, and after checking for vital signs on the phone with emergency services, they couldn't find a pulse. The arrival of emergency services would only confirm what they could already see. Tragically, Melinda was dead, and, as it turns out, she'd been stabbed a horrifying 47 times. It was obvious to everyone who was responsible for this. Ager was already known to the police, had previously broken in, was the last person to have seen Melinda, and had already proven himself to be violent. And the spotlight shone even brighter on him when they realized that Ager was nowhere to be found. He had simply vanished into the night, leaving a devastating crime scene behind. As outrage and pain ripped through the community, the police made it their #1 priority to try and track him down. But despite their best efforts, Ager was nowhere to be found. And it soon became apparent that if Ager was responsible for Melinda's murder, he didn't plan to hang around in Canada to explain. Although a surveillance camera had captured him and the
And God only knows when he actually did this. Like, how long was they at the restaurant? Did they walk around afterwards? How many hours was they gone? He could have done this like right after they left. Like, he could have had like the knives in there. Okay, what if when he got there, he had got the knives, already took her into to the bedroom whenever he heard them coming back or whatever, and sat there and had a knife to her and was like, "You tell them you're fine. You tell them to go on. You text them. You know what I mean?" And what if as soon as they walked out the door and he heard them like leave, that he didn't just start instantly stabbing the shit out of her then and then leave right after that? And if they was gone for like an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours, he's got a fucking hell of a head start.
Car he was using on the night Melinda was killed. He was captured a second time when swapping out the license plates in a parking lot after crossing the border. And with this information, it wouldn't take the authorities long after this to pinpoint the exact time and place where he left Canada. At around 6 AM of the same morning of Melinda's murder, his vehicle was recorded crossing the Peace Bridge located east of Lake Erie, which connects Ontario to Buffalo. And shortly after crossing the border, that is when the internet became involved. Because shortly after this, strange posts began to appear all over Reddit. In these posts, Ager gave his own grievous version of events, and although they were promptly removed and the account was deleted, it was all too late, because many people had already archived these posts. And just as fast as those messages disappeared, Ager Hasan himself would as well. Several days later, and to begin negotiations, he contacted the police on WhatsApp. Ager said that he would turn himself in if he had some sort of deal in place first. But without any sort of deal coming into fruition, he once again vanished after these messages. Now, this was no small accomplishment here. Ager had successfully evaded the law, and unfortunately, this wouldn't be the last time either. He had vanished into the lands of the United States, and all detectives could do was hope that he would eventually message them back. The next sign of life from Ager would be 2 weeks later on May the 20th, when he claimed that he'd been photoshopped after being wrongfully spotted in Tennessee. And then 1 month later, on June the 19th, 3 more posts would suddenly appear. Slightly different from the rest, these two were merely images with captions which explained his feelings. Despite this, no matter how hard detectives and data forensics tried, they simply could not pinpoint his position. And despite multiple points of contact with the officers, he would continue to evade the law. Sadly, with every day on the run, further distressing Melinda's family and loved ones. But finally, on July the 10th, 2017, progress was suddenly made when Ager posted on Instagram. In this post, he said, "I'm coming home. It's time to end the dark path I've been traveling and give people the closure they deserve." Saying that, he wouldn't post this without some half-assed vanity photo. I'm unsure if black and white was for deep, thoughtful, dramatic effect or to simply enunciate his jawline, but either way, it just screams how tone-deaf he was in the moment. But despite this post, Ager didn't actually turn himself in. Instead, he was finally arrested as part of a counterfeit investigation. His phone was identified and tracked after buying counterfeit currency via the dark web, with officers arresting him just 1 day after this Instagram post. And this isn't the end of his terrible time on the internet either. Oh no. In fact, it would get much, much worse. It was later learned that, while still on the run, Ager had opened a Facebook account under a fake name. And under this fake Facebook account, he would actually go on to message Melinda's mother. And in addition to this, would go on to join at least one group that was dedicated to Melinda's memory. In a direct message to Melinda's mother, he wrote, "Just an outsider looking in. Sorry about what happened to your daughter. However, it seems like this could have been avoided had you not let her stay in the apartment after he broke in the first time. Partially your fault, yes, but I hope you can forgive yourself. We all make mistakes. This one, however, cost your daughter's life. Oh well, you have other daughters, right?" He would then go on to post on the memorial page saying, "This is what happens when a whore dates a douche. Murder." Although there was never any concrete proof that Ager had sent these messages, it is extremely likely.
Okay, so there's not 100% proof that he did, but it's extremely likely. Oh my god. If he did that, oh shit, that motherfucker be beating black and blue, bro. Oh.
because after tracking down the IP address, it was proven to have been sent from the same house he was hiding in. And as you will soon come to realise, there is much more evidence for the court to use later on. The timeline on the night of Melinda's death has never been fully agreed upon. However, using the information and evidence available, we can generate a pretty thorough understanding. Despite legal procedures already in place to restrict Ager from meeting Melinda, the two had chosen to meet up and speak again in person. Although Ager missed the initially agreed time frame, he would eventually meet Melinda after her friends left for the evening. And after arriving back at the property, her friends were satisfied with the conversation being calm enough that they did not intervene, and furthermore left to get food. Sometime between the group leaving and then returning, it is clear that the situation between Melinda and Ager began to rapidly deteriorate. Ager claims that he did actually plan to be at the property while Melinda's friends were there, but would accidentally arrive late. Following the conversation, surveillance footage captures Melinda walking Ager out of the apartment and to his car. In this footage, both of them seem to be calm and comfortable with each other. Melinda then goes back inside, where Ager pauses for a moment before then following her back into the apartment. According to Ager, their conversation had gone very well up until this point in time, but he hadn't yet fully shared his story with her. On that basis, he decided to go back inside and confess that he had cheated with another woman in recent months. Shortly after 2 AM, a surveillance camera captures him running to his vehicle before speeding off into the night. And just 40 minutes later, the other members of the group returned home. According to his Reddit post, Melinda alleged—
Man, if he would have just left, whenever she walked him out this car, if he would have just left. What the fuck, man? See, stupid decisions. Ended.
allegedly lost her temper after learning of his infidelity. He claimed that she began to slap and hit him, and eventually he pushed her back in self-defense. Depending on whether you believe him or not, but Ager claims that she grabbed a knife from the kitchen and began to stab him with it, inflicting several wounds on his hands and wrists. He then claims that he apparently, quote, blacked out, and when he came back around, she was on the floor. He allegedly thought that she had just merely passed out, and then he fled the scene.
Hey, if you don't actually black out, don't say shit like that. I do. I black out. I have. It's been like that ever since I was really young. Whenever I get to a certain point, it's not me. I don't like it. It's scary. It's like I'm standing behind myself, watching what happens. I don't remember it right away. I don't usually remember it until like a few days later, sometimes a week later. But I don't remember it like I'm doing it. I remember it like I'm watching me do it. Like like someone pushed my ghost out of my body and my body's just going just stupid and I'm watching it. Like, and I don't know about other people, but I get really strong. Like, because the first time it happened, I was probably about 10 years old, and I got into a fight with my uncle after he smacked my mom. And I don't remember none of it. I remember him smacking my mom. I remember what he called her. I will not repeat it. I remember what he called her. I remember him slapping her, and that's the last thing I remember. They said I jumped over like a concrete pillar thing, and like these big ass bushes landed right on top of him, and just they said if my dad wouldn't have came up and like drop kicked me when he did, I probably would have killed him. And I don't remember a bit of it. They even said like after my dad drop kicked me, I jumped back up and went right back at him. Like, not my uncle, my dad. Like, I was going at my father. Like, and then by then the cops showed up, tackled me, and I was still trying to fight them. They said it didn't matter if it was in front of me, I was going at it. So don't say shit if you don't go through it, bro. It's not an excuse. It's scary. It's scary. For me, it's scary. I don't know what I do, and I don't like it. I like to be in control of the things I do.
He then texted her phone, saying how glad he was that they had made up and everything was good between them, before then, of course, for no reason at all, speeding off towards the US-Canadian border. I am remaining mostly impartial as always, but honestly folks, I am struggling with this guy. As a side note, Ager's Reddit profile was named Red as Blue 101, which leans into the whole red pill blue pill ideology. I do think he was just trying to sound smart and edgy, but it could also be nihilism. Anyway, with Ager being on the run for so long and, in the end, not even giving himself up, he had a lot of work to do to convince the jury he was innocent. But before we get into the legal proceedings, let's reiterate a few cold hard facts. While on the run, he had been in contact with the police multiple times to try and negotiate some sort of plea deal. In fact, the very day that Melinda was murdered and he crossed the border into the US, he spoke with a detective via WhatsApp. The text message read, "Detective, I did not attack her first. She came at me with a knife after I revealed to her what I did in the past. Things were good. I was in her room for an hour just cuddling and kissing. Even asked her roommate. When I came back to get my keychain, I told her the truth. She then went for the knife." The version of events that Ager described seemed to be at odds with almost all of the evidence that was brought up during the trial, and Melinda's autopsy revealed that she had been stabbed a total of 47 times. The cause of her death was determined to be sharp force trauma to the neck and chest, with more than half of those 47 wounds made to her neck. No surprise, Ager continued to paint the picture of self-defense during his trial, claiming he had only retaliated while trying to protect himself from a supposed crazed ex-partner. He claimed that she had grabbed the knife out of nowhere, injuring his hand and wrist in the process. However, the sheer number of stab wounds that were inflicted on Melinda made it very difficult to believe. I mean, it is one thing to defend yourself, but 47 times? The forensic pathologist.
That's what I'm saying though. But if he does have the thing where he blacks out, like I said, if someone stabbed me, like actually did stab me, I'm going to black out on them. I'm sorry, I'm going into instant rage mode. It would be possible. That's what I'm saying. Like, I black out, so I know, and it's scary. Like, it would be possible. It would for him to do it, if he does black out, and because you don't have control, it's rage. You go Hulk mode, bro. There's nothing, no friends, no enemies. It's all just death.
Pathologist who carried out the autopsy believed that just 2 of the 6 stab wounds have been fatal, and this means that the other 45 were all simply overkill. She also stated that the wounds on hands and arms were typical of self-defense, or at least were wounds that were typical of someone being attacked and trying to protect themselves. Ager insisted that he had feared for his life and merely blacked out, and was therefore unable to remember his actions. During his trial, he said, "I remember stabbing her twice. I was overwhelmed. I just blacked out after that. When I regained focus, there was blood everywhere. I didn't expect to lose control like I did." When Ager was given the chance to address the court, he said, "I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, apologize. There are 0 excuses for taking one's life. I cannot and will not forgive myself." During his trial, text messages between the pair were read out and shown to the courtroom. One from Ager saying, "I never did and never will physically hurt you in any way." Another read, "I don't want to get over what we had. If anyone tells you our relationship was toxic, they are wrong. Yes, we fought a lot, but it's only because of our cultural differences. But I was slowly starting to change for the better. We can work out any situation, as long as there was no cheating or hitting involved." And yeah, I hate to break it to you, Ager, but you kind of failed on both of those factors.
Yeah, but
the final
miserably.
text message sent by Ager was sent at 3:39 AM, which was roughly 1 hour after paramedics arrived. And this text message simply said, "Nice seeing you tonight. Glad we worked things out. Anyways, see you soon." The prosecution would ultimately suggest that this was just a poor effort to cover his tracks while he made his way to the border to flee the country. They would also highlight that this cute text message was sent only after he'd stabbed her almost 50 times and then left her for dead. No surprise, Ager was eventually found guilty of murder in the 2nd degree,
Hell yeah.
defined as intentional killing without premeditation in the Canadian Criminal Code. And so, as a result, he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 16 years. With this being 2nd degree murder,
Look, I'm going to go ahead and say I'm not saying that the Ohio judicial system, all of America's judicial system, North America's judicial system, I'm not saying no specific judicial system is any better or any worse than any other one. You know, they have their kinks, their quirks, their qualities. I don't know why I said kinks. I mean, like kinks in a chain, not like kinks like woohoo. You know what I mean? Keep up. It's all good. But I don't understand life in prison was 16 years after stabbing someone 40 some fucking times. That bewilders me. That bewilders me a lot.
Ager could have technically received as little as 10 years behind bars if his parole was set accordingly, but thankfully the judge set this at 16 years instead. Although Melinda's family were happy to receive justice, they were rather disappointed with what felt like a relatively short sentence. After all, with the time he had already spent in custody taken into account, he could theoretically be out of prison as early as the year 2033, putting Ager at the still young age of only 41. Many of the delays seen before his trial were due to the court system shutting down due to COVID-19. But this was also further exacerbated by Ager changing his own legal representation. To add to this, the evidence created and messages sent while he was on the run were kept out of the case by the prosecution, which also seems odd. It was made clear in the court that, although there was no doubt that he was the one who had taken her life, the exact circumstances behind it have never been fully agreed.
He's a piece of
Following
shit.
his sentencing in September of
That's all you need to know.
2023, Melinda's aunt spoke outside of the courthouse on behalf of the family. In her statement, she said, "The past 6.5 years, it's been hard, emotional, aggravating, upsetting. It is never over for the victims' families, especially for us. Melinda is gone forever. She's never coming back, and I don't agree that he should even be allowed eligibility for any type of parole."
I
On these
agree.
words alone, you can see how strongly they felt about his sentence. One of the most unique aspects of this case is Ager's decision to put his own version of events on a public forum. It is crazy to me that he felt confident and sure enough in himself to do that. Messaging Melinda's mother under a fake name to tell her that it was her fault that her daughter had died while simultaneously calling her a whore is one of the most evil and sick things I've ever heard. I just can't get.
Bro, I'm gonna go ahead and say this. I think there was a lot of failure involved in this poor girl's story. I understand people will feel unsafe and sometimes it's unwarranted. I understand that. Sometimes people just get like really lost in their own stuff and they get overly paranoid. But if they're your friend, if they're your family, it doesn't matter if it's just stupid bibble babble or if it's real. You should be there, period. As long as they need you. That is your family. That is your friend. That's how I was raised. And I guess I think people should be like that. I don't know. But I think a lot of failures in a lot of different ways resulted in this becoming as bad as what it was.
Get my head around that. That shit is just depraved.
It
And feeling
is.
cocky enough to call out the police on Instagram while also on the run is just bitterly funny too. Even after
bit.
murdering somebody, he is out there victimizing himself like a true narcissist. And this black and white photo and quote to show that he was somehow a good little boy for handing himself in really was the cherry on top. The protracted legal proceedings once he had been apprehended, as well as the information that was kept out of the court case, is also fairly unique. The prosecution was looking for a conviction based on the crime that had been committed that night, and at that moment, they didn't want to muddy the waters with extra information that was essentially irrelevant. Although there was some backlash over his sentence, it is worth noting that if they did charge him with murder in the first degree, then the prosecution would have had to prove that he had travelled to Melinda's house with the premeditated intention of killing her, which, as you can imagine, would have been quite difficult to prove. And sadly, no matter the charge or the sentence given, Melinda's death is something that cannot be undone.
100%.
She was a young woman with an entire life ahead of her, murdered at the hands of a man who claimed
Beautiful
to have
young
loved
lady.
her. Her death has left a massive hole in the lives of everyone who knew her. And in court, her mother spoke about the life goals that she would now never experience. She would never have the opportunity to have children as she'd dreamed about, and would never be able to experience the joy of growing old. Her mother spoke of how the light had gone out in her own life, how she was unable to hold down full-time work or even visit busy areas. Melinda's sister, her aunts, and her friends all described her as beautiful with a vibrant personality, that she was caring and loving and would do anything for anyone. Her obituary pages and the various groups and fundraisers on social media are full of platitudes where anyone who crossed paths with her had nothing but great things to say. Her life was cut short by a man alleging to love her, a man who had already proven himself to be unstable and impulsive by breaking into her house. A man who was under legal instruction not to even approach her. The time he spent on the run, and even his defense that he tried to deploy, was nothing more than an attempt to smear the memory of his victim. Thankfully, it was an effort that was in vain. Every once in a while I come across a killer that just really gets under my skin, and Ager definitely is one of them. Hope he spends many years behind bars. Anyway folks, I think that pretty much wraps up our case.
16, evidently. Damn. I really enjoyed today's story. Like, I really did tremendously. I love Coffeehouse Crime. I know I don't get as many views on the videos I do with Coffeehouse Crime as I do my other ones, but I don't care. I love Coffeehouse Crime. I always leave it like just mentally mind fucked. All right, I really enjoyed today's story. If y'all enjoyed today's story as much as I did, please go down there, leave a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. While you're down there going over, smack that subscribe button. Become part of the Bill 5000 Nation. We do some crazy shit here, bro. And if you want to know when that crazy shit happens, ding that bell. It'll let you know when my premieres come up, if you're one of those lucky people. If you are one of those lucky people, and it does let you know when my premiere pops out, come on in. Join in on the live chat. Say, hey, it worked. Deuces, bro. Leave a like, and then you can dip. That's all I want. That's all I ask. I like a dip. Comment in between, you know. If you really want to support the channel, links in the description. Go check out my store. I got some amazing merch, and you can't tell me I don't unless you check it out for yourself. As always, be good to one another, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Man, dude was just a piece of shit. Like, I had a little bit of sympathy if he is like someone that actually does suffer from the blacking out things, but I think he was just bullshitting, which pisses me off even more. And I hope he gets in the booty hole for at least the next 16 years.